Henry Mashburn. I am an executive at a company called Alternative Horizons Group. It's a little bit of a newer payment processing firm, but I've been in the industry, the CBD and hemp, for the last 7 years on my side of the space, and I'm chief sales, chief relationship officer at my firm, but one of the original co-founders.
Well, excellent. All right, perfect. And I will give a little credit before we jump in. Thanks to Float House for introducing us, Gordon and Jared over there a while ago. I'm glad we were able to get the time together. So let's give the audience kind of a cloud flyover of what it is like that you guys do specifically, but also to let everybody know that may not be within the industry on the back end, what payment processing does and kind of what that means on an everyday basis.
Yeah, so payment processing, and it was so funny. It's an industry that nobody really knows about, and it's an industry that not a lot of importance is, put on by a lot of other industries, but there's some industries that it's kind of the core of whether a business can, succeed or, based on the relationships that they choose, fail. But the overall, explanation for it is the world of transactions is massive, right? It's an extremely fragmented industry. When you think about how many transactions there are daily, there are probably billions, I would say weekly, potentially trillions, at the global level. But in the way in which we play is what we call, and I say this with quotes, right? Because it's, acumen from our knowledge. It doesn't actually align with the verbiage whatsoever, besides the reputational risk that these, banks kind of decide on a whim. But we target high risk industries. CBD and hemp was actually my first regulated industry that I jumped into, pretty early on in my career. And I've seen it go from CBD and CBG flower online to kind of the whole entire awesome ecosystem, that we see alive today that, obviously is not in the ideal, scenario here in, November, but we've been a part of these waves, man. This has happened so many different times. Obviously, this is the furthest that it's made for an unlike or not a good situation for us. But our main way that we play in payment processing and how we represent our clients is we are basically the liaison for our customers and our clients between them and the bank. So there's multiple banks in our ecosystem. What they call them are acquiring or sponsor banks. And what that simply means is that they're sponsoring the merchant that's getting approved at their business for getting deposited the credit card transactions or the ACH transactions that they're receiving from their customers, right? So I'm customer A, Nate, your Nate's Hemp Beverages online. I go to your website. I love the 5 milligram beverage that you have. I check out with my credit card. That basically gets batched, goes to that bank, and then they deposit it in your account. So it's basically the audit trail to ensure that the goods that a business is selling and getting payment on are good business, which of course 99.9% of them are, but there are these. This is why this layer exists, because it's the 0.1% that isn't good, that kind of ruins it for everybody else, like anything else in life. And they're the ones that then go ahead and ACH them their funds based on the goods or services that they're selling. So that's kind of, that's like the simplest way that I can kind of explain it, but it's kind of playing like a double agent in the Cold War, right? Like the US is the bank, the merchant is Russia, and you're kind of trying to get both of them to work together and ensure, a long-term relationship.
Now, are you guys, I'll remind everybody as well, there's no script and there's no agenda. I did not do any homework other than the email that I saw where we were introduced. So, and I knew they said payment processing in the email. Are you e-commerce only? Or are you also in the point of purchase at the registers and retail?
We're all above, man. I mean, it really just depends on what the customer needs or wants, or sometimes what we see is what they don't know what they want yet, and that's kind of where our expertise can come in and be very fruitful or helpful from what I've seen so far. But most of our business is focused on what we call the acronym is CNP. It just stands for card not present. And what that means is when the transaction is being made, the merchant on the other end isn't present, seeing who is on the other side making that transaction. So that mostly is e-commerce, but it also could be a lot of B2B, right? Where we can integrate with like FreshBooks or QuickBooks, Go High Level, Salesforce, HubSpot, however that B2B team is operating. But we do really enjoy working with retailers as well. So we do have a bunch of different point of sale systems and terminals, again, just based on, their needs that we can kind of bring to the table and, give diversity.
Now we have a lot of distributors in the wholesale world that listen and watch the show. Do you work in that level as well with wholesale distribution as far as B2B goes?
Do mostly with independents. And again, it just
Mhm.
really depends on their business model because a lot of the bigger distributors that come to me that are doing like 200K wires or 300K wires, I'm like, listen, I would love for you to take credit cards because I'd make a ton of money, but it probably doesn't make sense for your business, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of those individuals can do ACHs or bank wires directly from bank to bank. So that's not really a world that we play in too much. But again, there are a ton of independent distribution companies that either use ACH or credit card. And that's where we can go in there and consult them on the best way to take those transactions to make sure that their bottom line isn't really taking a hit just because credit cards you take a payment and you have cash flow the next day. ACHs and wires, you usually have to wait a few days to get your deposit. And that's depending on your business model or if you need the cash, it'd be more attractive to take one over the other, even though you're paying a fee based on future receivables.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about your story, Henry. What kind of got you into this world? At what age were you at the time, and what was the environment of your life going on? I'll let people know.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get real vulnerable and tell it all. So whatever you want
Yeah,
to share, man.
no, man. I'm an open book, which sometimes is a really good thing. And then as I find out, it can also be a bad thing, 'cause being a little too transparent. But most people in payments, they fall into this industry completely by accident. And once we kind of call it the mafia. Once you get in, you kind of never get out, just because, especially if you want to grind and you're consistent, you're good to people, you know how to build credibility. It's not that it's easy to succeed, but the foundation is laid, and you just have to kind of get in there and then run 1,000 miles towards it. My background is definitely a little bit diverse. I grew up even though my last name is Mashburn, which is very American, and it's because it is. I was actually born in Lima, Peru. My dad was a geologist, so I lived in about three different countries before moving to the U.S. when I was 11 years old. Places like Lima, Peru, where my mom is from, which is Honduras. I've lived there as well. And I also lived in a really cool place that not a lot of people know called Suriname. So there's three countries north of Brazil that nobody really knows about.
Hmm.
To the excuse me, to the east of Venezuela and Colombia. And it's the country in the middle, which is actually an old Dutch colony. Their main language is Dutch, but a lot of people speak English. Obviously, very exotic regions based on my dad's career, which paid and a lot of benefits for me in the future because I saw so many different cultures before I even knew who I really was as a teenager or younger young adult. So I didn't really see a lot of differences in people from different cultures, different colors, different acumens. It was all just kind of the same to me. Like people were people and they're different. That's kind of what I grew up with. Then I moved to Florida when I was 11, and when I got here when I was 11, I really started to pick up on a passion, which was my how they call it in Europe, football, but in soccer, in the U.S., excuse me, soccer. I picked up on my soccer career and kind of made it through the ranks here locally in the state of Florida. I was a goalie, started at a team locally, and kind of just made it from the bottom all the way to the top. I was very fortunate to play for my mother's maiden country, which is Honduras, in a U17 World Cup in 2015 and a U20 World Cup in South Korea in 2017. That again just extended my confidence in my abilities and within myself and whatever that I did. And then I got really fortunate based on that experience that University of Michigan came knocking on the door with a scholarship. Picked me up as their goalie, and I wasn't supposed to play. I was the fourth string, coming in, kind of had, again, there's always this underdog story in my life and kind of overcoming barriers. And eventually I started playing, halfway through my freshman year, and then I played every single minute through that. I studied neuroscience and pharmacology and alternative wellness, which I had no idea that it would be so helpful today in the career that I've in the company that I have today. But after those the first 4 years, I was supposed to go work as striker, as your typical pharmaceuticals rep. But I had
Mhm.
some internal family, just dynamics and dramas having to do with alcoholism and, some of the opioids that kind of came from the Purdue family back in the day. And I just had there was just there's just a disinterest in jumping into that and just being able to make a lot of money doing those types of things. And then my old company was owned by a UMich alum, and they kind of came knocking at the door at the last second. I had no idea what payment processing was. I didn't even know it existed. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go take the sales job and I'm just gonna learn how to sell myself, and then eventually, go get a master's in something and kind of figure out my life. And the second I started at that company is when most of the banks in our world started opening up to CBD and hemp. And I'd been a big advocate of cannabis. I'd used it for the sporting side, stress relief, joint pain, back pain. And, I kind of saw an opportunity because I'd met other people from that industry, and I understood that not that their acumen wasn't the best, but their acumen when it came to the financial world
Hmm.
wasn't really the best because they were being taken advantage of, and no one really cared to explain things thoroughly to them. So they kind of learned how to operate within guardrails to really be able to, scale and grow. But, being a soccer player, especially a goalie, my diverse culture, then what I studied, coming into the payment processing position at that company really made my success as a young man. I was 22, I'm 22 at that time. I'm 27 now. No, I was 21 at the time. I'm 27 now. It really accelerated my growth, right? And I slowly, within a year and a half, became the number one sales rep, kind of, brought all these different CBD and hemp businesses, and we kind of created a really nice hub for CBD and hemp and some of the other adaptogens and botanicals, the kratom, the kavas, mushrooms, and all these other products that kind of brought wellness to
Hmm.
people, at least, from experiences in my personal life. And, it's easy to talk shop with a CBD and hemp business owner when you know a little bit more of the science of the products than they do. And they're like, oh my God, this payments guy isn't just trying to take my money. He actually understands what I'm going through, my business, the medical side, the scientific side. And then I just turned the French of the payments processing space into English for them, so they had easier understanding, and that just kind of catapulted my growth, as I said. And then I started, to diversify into other industries like cannabis seeds, clones, genetics, mycology, anything that was kind of within the alternative wellness realm that was really hurting in the payment processing space, just because of how people in my space kind of are. They like to take advantage of people. There's a lot of money that can be made, and they just kind of care about that. And they look at short-term gains over long-term gains, which is the opposite approach that we have. And we had a really good time at that company. Really liked their executives, had a lot of good things to say, but we were just starting to slowly, outgrow our sales position. And the CEO also saw that. He offered us to start our own internal payments business in there, and he's a really good negotiator, so he came out with a really good contract from his end, but it just wasn't as attractive as possible from our perspective. And we decided to exit that business and kind of create Alternative Horizons Group about 2 years ago. And it's been very successful, man. But it's not only successful obviously because of the owners and people like Michael and the employees that we brought in that have just been fantastic to work with and A players, but also because of the way in which we care about people and how we carry ourselves and kind of what we've learned from one of the bigger payment processing companies, exactly what not to do to service individuals. And that we kind of already knew people, and people already knew us through like the Hemp Beverage Alliance.
Hmm.
I'm an advisory board member there, the US Hemp Roundtable, the AHA, and a bunch of different organizations. And it took a little bit to ramp up, but since we started ramping up about 9 months ago, it just hasn't stopped. And it's kind of unbelievable, sitting here working with quality people like Michael and people on our team. And we've been able to create, a really nice ecosystem where we can really scale and kind of go to the next level. And the only thing that's kind of bearing us or weighing down on us in that world is November, right? Because that's kind of what we built our whole entire company through. And obviously, we have diversification plans, and there's a lot of things going with Schedule 3 on the medical side where we're going to be able to play, and then Schedule 3 later this year, hopefully in July. But that's kind of the A to Z on where I came from, where I'm from, my background, and how it's led to us being successful with our payment processing firm, and luckily working with really, really awesome business owners in this industry that, have helped us grow, because we grow when our customers grow. So anything that we can do to help them in that domain really allows us to shine as well.
It's important what you just said there at the end, which is it's important to have your retail grow. And I think a lot of times people don't realize, for those of us that are in the service business, that's what we do all day long. The podcast is something we do on the side and everything like that, but really our business is strategy and market development with local independent and chains and everything like that. And I think the stress we need to put onto the public too is like those that make statements like that, you can tell that they respect their retail partners, because without the retail partner, we don't exist. Us,
We
the
don't.
service business doesn't exist, and we're irrelevant. So we do have their best interest in it because we need them to be sustainable and thriving.
And I'm very lucky, Nate. I'm very lucky that the space that I'm in, and I'm even luckier that nobody in my industry looks at it this way. But If you're really helping e-commerce, a retail business, or a B2B business grow and they're taking credit cards, the only other person that's making more money to the side of your customer is the payment processor. And that's really where our business model aligns is we get a residual every month off of somebody's sales. And we look at that as them keeping us on retainer. And what that
Hmm.
allows us to do is really dive into all these other aspects of their business, right? Payment processing isn't what gets me out of bed, nor do I want it to be what gets me out of bed. That would be a very boring life, even though it's such an important industry. But the ability to just learn commerce in these specific niches because of the payments data that we get shows us so much signaling from 14 to 15 different parts of our business and of their business, excuse me. And we've been able to go out and find those other ancillary services and solutions that kind of match our acumen or our strategy when it comes to these businesses. And then we get to align these business owners with those people, if it's from a growth or reduction perspective or going and lobbying for them in DC, and then just seeing their payments data rise and seeing them scale and see how happy they are once they kind of go through that process is really what fuels our business today. Because again, without them, we would be nothing, man. And that's what a lot of payments people kind of tend to forget is the only reason you're here is because another business owner is trusting us. And we've just been we're very, very humbled and thankful for the businesses that trust us today. And that's the reason why we've grown so quickly within this 2 year mark.
I'll tell you one of the funny parts about like risk management, and I'm just going to say it funny and put humor on the risk management stress that you and I and everybody else in this industry feels every day. But when 3 years ago I was working on a project with a payment processing company to remain nameless in this conversation, they didn't want to touch anything with hemp, and it was so weird in the board meeting. It was a big company, so like it was board meetings, Zooms, all that stuff 3 years ago, and it made me it was one of the contributing factors that made my stint and project with them get shorter,
Yeah.
because not only that, it combos with everything else you just said as well. Everything was short term, so they literally throw you a territory, and within 30 days, if you weren't pulling an X amount of stuff, they didn't care. And I'm sitting there in these meetings, and I'm like, we're right out of COVID, trust is at zero, and
Yep.
we're supposed to do this, and this, and then convert over 5,000 SKU inventory or 10,000 SKU inventory to mom and pop, but is just recovering from COVID, and now we want to come after them with a service. I said that's really challenging to do,
It is. It
and
is.
the detachment of that was the disappointing part, and it became a principle and passion where I just had no principle and passion in what I was doing with them. And in the past 3 years, it's been a big piece of mine where people have to, I don't care what the money is, they have to be aligned with what I'm doing in order to do. So for me to be able to wake up in the morning, like, yeah, exactly like you just said, if I'm taking my head off the pillow, it's because I passionately want to do something. It's not because of the paycheck. Those days are behind me.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
paycheck, like if you do things right in business, at least from the people that I've seen and I've worked with, and you do it long enough, the money always comes, man. But
Yep.
it's how does the money come that I believe leads to long-term happiness. Does it come in because you're litigating against 20 people and you're the lawyer, you're the CEO of the company, but you also have a law degree and you can show up every single time and like run people of their money and win money? Are you screwing people over? Are you making quick short-term gains by taking advantage of people? Are you building a foundation
Hmm.
for long-term success for you and your customers where your company is going to be around for a long time? And
Yeah.
that's kind of our vision is, we don't care about short-term cash flow gains. We only care about the long term. And that's how we started 2 years ago. And we're really starting to feel the positives of having that mentality and mindset just because we keep on growing. Like I look at our numbers as a company and we
Hmm.
just keep on growing, 30% month over month, 20%, 40%. We're already up through the payments going through us 10% today with a lot of other people hearing about us and wanting to work with us. And that's just because we've done the right thing. And we look for those long-term relationships. And, we don't even have contracts at our business, man. We have a 95% retention rate because we don't force people to work with us. We want people to feel like they're in the decision making position when it comes to payment processing, and we're a vehicle for that allows them to be in control of their relationship with the bank because they have somebody in between that is really allowing them to stay in that position by communicating with the bank correctly on what they're doing, how fast are they scaling, what new SKUs are they selling, are they changing their business model, always communicating with them what the merchant gives to us to ensure that they don't have any of these issues and horror stories that you hear about all the time in this industry and in other regulated industries, unfortunately.
What are not in a sales aspect, we're not trying to pitch the audience, but give advice to the audience about if they're being approached by a payment processing company. What are some good questions that they could ask that if they're that way they're not overwhelmed, but they could also be like, some sort of flagging or anything like that where they could get a good snapshot about whether or not that's the right path for them.
Absolutely. And a lot of people in the payment space are going to hate me for some of these, but I am totally fine, totally fine with that because a lot of
You
them
seem
don't
like
like
the
me
kind of
already.
guy that was going to answer it. I knew
Yeah.
it was showing, so you're good. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of don't like me already because I take a lot of business for them, and I will keep that up as long as the niches I target like me. That's all I care about. But definitely some good questions is, and even before you get to the questions, you want to make sure that you're going to a processor or an agent shop like mine that really understands your niche, right? So not that they only know what CBD or THCA flower is. You want them to really understand the scientific side, the legislative landscape and kind of what it's looked like over the last few years. Where can you ship to? Where can't you ship to? Where can you sell retail? What are some strategies, around that, right? If your agent already doesn't have a good grasp on your industry, that should indicate to you that it's already not going to be a good experience. And you'd be surprised, man. I've talked to some brands this week and last week, and these are like, I wish I could say their names because you'd be like, wow, I know who that is. But they've been around in the industry for 6, 7 years. And like and I know a lot of people, competitors of mine that play in this space, and a lot of them are really good at what they do. But I come across these brands and I'm like, the banks and the processors you're with don't even support your industry anymore. And you're grandfathered in and you're still processing. They don't even know the name of their agent. They don't know where to find their reporting, their processing statements, what their fees look like. It's all this craziness. And I was, sharing with Michael because he's new to this team. I was like, the opportunity is massive with these companies that have been around 7, 8 years and they don't even know these things. So that's number one. That's the biggest indicator. Number two is understanding the sponsor bank that they're placing you at. So, and to kind of explain that, I'll give you like the corporate ladder of our industry. So there's the bottom layer, which is where I live and exist and where I love to be, is the agent groups, right? We're the ones talking to the owners, getting their paperwork, and we're sending them to the next layer, which is the payment processors, right? These are the wholesalers, or they are the processors that are owned by banks directly. We like to work with the ones that are owned by banks because we can go talk to the board and do a little bit more of there's more situational things that come up and we can remedy them or solve them or kind of create things that fit the business model of the merchants a little bit better. Above them is the sponsor banks. So the sponsor banks are the ones that actually decide everything, and they're the ones that make us, the processors and the agent groups, enforce and take on the liability and kind of get the hate from the market depending on what goes on. But they're always the deciding ones, but they decide based on somebody else, which is the card brands, right? And you want to make sure that whoever your agent group or processor are, because we're one level above below them, but we kind of act next to them because we have so many relationships and we've done so well with them that they kind of treat us as internal guys because we also protect them from other bad players and actors in some of these other niches. But you want to make sure that that processor is aligned with their sponsor bank when it comes to the industry and how long they're going to be playing in certain regulated industries when we get into a situation like today. So sponsor bank is the second one. A third one is something that is very important, and a lot of people don't even know what it is or how it makes sense, which is the acronym is MCC. That stands for Merchant Category Code, and that's the code that you get from a processor or bank when you get approved. So that's kind of like your risk mitigation number when it comes to the ether of the payment processing world. Because for example, let's go back to Nate's Hemp company.com. If I'm Visa or MasterCard and I have a ghost buyer go to your website, we'll run the transaction, we'll get the product, we'll look at the back end of everything in our world and we'll see, okay, so Nate's Hemp beverages, are at this or at this bank. This is what they got approved at. Their merchant category code is 5499 or 5999, which are the two most popular for CBD and hemp in the CPG category. And they see that you got underwritten as that, you're good to go and process, right? And these audits happen all the time. So you want to make sure that whoever is placing you is also giving you a true merchant category code. because it allows you to pass any audits that you might get that you have no idea that are even going on. Another one too is you want to ensure that they have a strong support team. There's billions of transactions that happen a day, Nate. So something's going to go wrong, and something will go wrong when you least expect it. And I tell my customers, even with me, I could do the best job in the world, but just because there's so many transactions going on, the risk of occurring it exists, right? So you want to make sure that you have that operating group, that trust, that relationship, where if you go down on Friday at 5, 6 p.m., you're going to have somebody to support you so you don't miss out on your sales for the weekend, and you don't have to wait till Monday at 9 a.m. And I had a call with another merchant last night, and this occurred to him, and that's why he got referred over to me, is he went out on 419 last month. He was down from 419 to 424, and he missed out on $155,000. Whatever the profit is of that, I have no idea, but just from a revenue perspective, I would faint as a business owner if that happened to me.
I had when I was in it, I was opening up an art gallery, a very high-end art gallery. And the reason I got the lead and then was told by somebody else to go down there was the same exact thing. It was a first Friday, which is like their biggest a day of the month, and their system went down 30 minutes before it started. And so they had to do cash only or checks or whatever that night, and it just didn't work because the value of the art that they had, and then the people didn't come back. You know, I mean, they were like, "Oh, I'll be back tomorrow," and then you sleep on that. On the other side, outside of payment processing, we don't like consumers to go home and think about things like that too long. You know, we only want them to make their decision when they can. So no, this is a really fascinating thing, and I really appreciate what you're doing. I want to say it on behalf of the industry, because working inside of it as well as another service base, a lot of people don't realize the risk that we take. And it's not just because we are in other industries and things like that. That should show you that we are intentionally here.
Yep.
A lot of times people ask me, well, like, you're in hemp, is no big deal, this and that with alcohol. It's like, yeah, I've been spent 22 years. I'll be 22 years this summer in the alcohol business. I can go back to it, but I choose this risk because I believe in what this is. And I think that's where there's a whole nother factor of service providers that need to more embrace that and wear that as a badge, and not as an egotistical thing, but really as a differentiator from others, and be like, we're choosing risk intentionally.
I even have talking about like wearing it proudly, right? I don't know if I might have it on my desk. I might have put it in the backpack, but even small little things like the HBA pin, on my desk.
I keep mine on my blazer. Yeah,
exactly. We're going to we'll be in Austin soon, and like we put it on,
I'll
right?
see you in a couple weeks, man.
Exactly, man. Because we're not even there. I mean, look, listen. If someone's there and they want to do business with me, I'm a business owner. I'm here for profit or revenue, right? Like I'm going to say yes to it. We're not dumb, right? But we're not going there to like actually go and win business. We're going there to see how our partners are doing, see how our brands are doing, seeing how we can help other people, or there's people in their network that we can also assist in different ways. It's not only how can we go in there and close as many merchant accounts as possible. Probably 90% of my business today has come from me helping somebody else with another aspect of their business, and then they turn over to me and they're like, my payment processor hasn't even called me in 6 months, and you're doing this. Like, why the heck am I not working with you? And those are like small little things too that stand out. Like, and just in business and in anything in general, it's like going up and above. And I'm so into the hemp space, honestly, more than I'm into the payment space. So like, I don't even on the financial side, and like a lot of different banking relationships and this and that I have in my world. But it's like we don't even look at the hemp business as risky. There's no real risk besides these business owners when it comes to the legislative landscape on their own outside of our world. But it's just more and it's super annoying, but it's just the reputational risk that these banks take on. And what that pretty much means is if they have a really big, banking client that has billions of dollars there, and that, and this is going to be a little bit of a stereotype, but he's a Southern gentleman. He's a little bit more Republican. He's cannabis is the devil, marijuana is for those types of people. And he finds out about that. He might take that money and park it somewhere else. And then that bank loses a ton of profits on the secondary market in their world. So that's kind of what they more refer, this industry as high risk. It's just the reputational risk. But, with all the customers we've had, they're all way below their 1% chargebacks, and they're all operating and running very legitimate businesses compared to a lot of other mainstream businesses that we work with that aren't as legit when it comes to the data, just what people think about them and reputational risk,
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you said that too, because that's what it is. It's portfolio risk. I mean, and especially in the beginning of this, like come in November, I was actually with Chris from the HBA and stuff like that. We were in Harrisburg working with the state in the capital doing a hill climb there,
With
and then
Lackner?
yeah,
Lackner?
with Lackney, yeah, I was with
Yeah,
him in the fall, and then I just ran into him at the Craft Brewers Conference about 2 weeks ago, and then I'll see him next week with the Pennsylvania Food Merchants Association. So we just have a bill called HB 2309 in Pennsylvania, which is a hemp
nice,
beverage carve out that then opens up so that we can legally sell also in bars and restaurants, and then
nice.
alcohol distributors can distribute. Breweries can then manufacture, because the law right now in Pennsylvania is you cannot have alcohol and hemp in the same premise, the distribution warehouse or manufacturing facility. So we're actually reversing what a lot of everybody else is trying to save it from being pulled off the shelf, and we're just still trying to get it on the shelf.
Well, listen, Chris is awesome, man. I mean, I joined the HBA 3 years ago. So, I mean, it was still pretty popular. I mean, today it's on a whole different
Mm-hmm.
pedestal. And I think there was only like, I think there's like 500 or 600, even maybe 900 members today. I joined, like, I was a part of like the first 100, like to say, and, seeing Chris from where he's gone today to even, being in Georgia last year and seeing him present in front of hundreds of people, it was like a surreal moment compared to one of the first HBA shows, which was like 20 or 30 people he was presenting to. So it just shows I have a lot of love, for beverage. Obviously, my world, it's a lot of D2C sales and a lot of retail sales and some different, channels through distribution. And I really want the D2C, aspect to survive when it comes to November, because that's the interest that
Mm-hmm.
I have in the industry. But it's just seeing how all these people have kind of come in and have gotten involved over even the last 2 years, and what beverage has done to mainstream the industry has been fascinating, man. And some of the I wish I could say a lot of the people that I work with. I'm not going to do it out of our payment processing contracts. Can't really divulge too much information of my customers, but it's some of the brands that have started the last 2 years that are some of the biggest D2C, in the hemp and CBD industry, and just seeing those guys come in from other industries and apply their same operating mentality, and just seeing them grow and scale and become what they've become today. It's truly fascinating, and just humbling that we get to be the team there that becomes the advocate for them at the bank, that allows them to kind of grow and scale and reach where they've reached today.
Yeah, it was in fall. It was we joined the HBA a couple. We're recent joiners, so we're probably one of the newer members, and
Nice.
that's one of the reasons is because everything that happened in the fall, and that was one of those things where I've been through the cycles with craft beer. We were big advocates of that. We fought the big guys. We got our place, and we got to live together in the sandbox. So immediately in the fall, once that came through, I was like, all right, I've seen this movie before, and I said, and I know I got the thick skin to do it. So we connected, and then immediately just jumped right into the capital, and then a couple of weeks or so ago we're in DC as well with them. So it's one of those things where it's important, and I think it's a lot of times there's still people in this industry, some that I've worked with in the past, that don't have that mentality of the activation, and I think
Yep.
that that's a piece that, not to differentiate or disparage, but I think that it's lost on the importance of what it is to show volume and show masses when we're trying to stand up for something, because a lawmaker, a congressman, a senator, whatever, state representative, having one or two really passionate people, that'll take you a good bit. But having 32 passionate people walking into a room or making phone calls and making emails, that really moves the needle. And I think that there's a piece there that I love seeing. What I'm trying to say is, from November till now, me being in the industry where I'm straddling all these different categories within it in my portfolio, all of a sudden we see hemp and alcohol start clashing. And I'm like, oh shit. I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I got them all in the house, and they're all the cats are
And
running.
Nate, even and to go even a step further, man, which is so interesting, is even the factions within hemp. And
Yeah.
again, I work, and we say this proudly. We work with all aspects of the
Mm-hmm.
space, right? So we don't say no. We don't say no to anybody. There's only a few that we say no to when it gets very, very synthetic with the product type. Some of those we're not interested in, but when it comes to the whole entire industry, we're open to it, right? And we're a part of every single faction when it comes to the lobbying groups, and just seeing how they kind of fight within themselves, and me being able to get into the industry and being in the
Yep.
backroom conversations and kind of getting to know these people personally. It's interesting to see how that kind of comes together with big pharma, with big alcohol, with the bourbon lobby and all these other things that are going in DC. And it's really fascinating, going to DC and kind of seeing that play in front of your eyes, especially as a business owner and an advocate of the industry, you really get a good understanding of what we're up against. And I love going to DC. I forgot how, I think it was like 10 to 15 times last year.
Nice.
Some independents, a lot with HBA and other organizations. I've gone 3 times this year already, and probably will go a few more times. But for me, it's always fascinating going in there and understanding how much these politicians, and I like to call them wigs, how much they don't know. And it's not because they don't know because they're not educated or they're dumb or they don't care. It's just because they don't know what they don't know. And
Mhm.
there's so many different things going on like this outside of our industry as well, that pressure that the industry has really been putting on the last 2 years has been amazing. And even talking to these, politicians about how audited they are in our world, they just have no idea. And they think it's just extremely wild, wild west, which it is, to some extent. So is the sugar industry, right? And other industries that can kill you even more than,
Yeah.
CBD and hemp products. Obviously, they just don't have the same reputational risk, but going in there and showing them the underwriting experience that they go with, the approval, the ongoing compliance, the ongoing auditing, it really opens up a lot of their eyes. And that's why I really love going, is being able to educate them on aspects of the space that they don't even know exist. And that's probably, besides just hanging out with awesome people. And again, I want to name half of them because they're all people that you see on LinkedIn. They're big people on the HBA and the US Hemp roundtables, but just, per my relationships with them, I like to kind of keep them a little secret. It's awesome to go with them and just seeing them in action as well and seeing the points that they make. I'm sitting there, and yes, I'm adding to it, but I'm more there just kind of being fascinated with how
Yeah.
the whole entire ecosystem works. And now it's just, kind of hoping and praying that we can get a good result come November, because from November to March, at least for our firm, it was some sleepless nights, man. It was and for the banks that we're aligned with and that really love this industry, again, I want to name them, but for privacy purposes, I'm not. It was a tough 2-3 months that we had, just being super concerned for what could happen for a lot of these business owners that we'd support today.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see, even just go back 6 months and 5 months from now, what those infightings and also the other industries, like I was saying with the alcohol, to now, at least from what I can say in Pennsylvania and as well federally, now the alignment of alcohol has kind of come into play. And it's kind of like it's kind of when everybody went away and then everybody kind of came back in. And it makes me feel so much better now, because that's what I wanted from the beginning. Because as a service provider of both, I saw the parallels and I saw the universalness of the two. And I was just like trying so hard, but that magnetic force, and now all of a sudden it's connected. And I want more service providers to, sometimes in our industry, we step back and we allow brands to do all the work. And sometimes we say we don't want to get involved. We don't want to get involved. I think there's certain situations where, especially with this, that I feel like people like yourself, myself, and other service providers I talk to, that's where our skill set of being service providers, we're bridges. Like we're
Yep.
natural bridges, whether it be from retail to distributors to banks. Like that's what we do. We're not linearly one way, and it's not one or the other's better, but it's a special skill set when there's negotiations, when there's conflict, when there's different aspects that are going on. So out to the audience of service providers, if you're not active in your trade organizations of whatever industry you're in, because you don't feel like you should be, because you're not a brand or you're not a distributor, it's the opposite. And I hope that from this conversation with Henry and I, you can see how active we are, especially how active Henry is, and also be able to see that that is something that they need, that value, because it's a different perspective, because we tend to see things more a little bit differently than everybody else, because we have to work interdependently and interdepartmentally, and we're more of like floating utility men that have a little wider of a perspective sometimes.
Yeah, and like even to talk about some that are doing a good job,
Mhm.
right? I really like the advisory board we have going on. We have Perfectly Dosed, Alex
Yep.
and Liam and their team, freaking awesome. We have EVG Extracts with Josh and his team as well. We have Peter with Frontier Risk. I think his name's Justin, the individual that's more in your world a little bit
Mhm.
more than mine. I think it's a Southern Crown Distributors or Southern Crown
Yeah.
Partners.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I know they're massive, but it's just not my world, and I know I've gotten it before. And Justin's giving me side eyes. I'm just trying to make sure I get it right. But those are just, again, those are the ones doing it right with us shoulder to shoulder and really pushing. But again, they're only a few compared to so many different other ones, and that's always what I tell a lot of my relationships. Because again, going back to our business model where we introduce to a lot of different ancillary solutions and services, that's how we get most of our business today, is through introductions. But it's because we introduce so much to other people that can help these customers. And When I look at the data sets that some of these marketing companies or agencies have, these fulfillment centers, some of these other manufacturing centers, these subscription companies, these age
Hmm.
verification companies, there's so much more out there that could, give some really good internal insight. And sometimes, and I get it, you're busy, you play in other industries, I'm a human too, I get it. Like I'm not gonna throw shade on people, but sometimes I don't understand, why they don't want to play in. And even one small example, and they do participate because they have a relationship with the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, and this is like an aspect of someone doing it the right way. There's one relationship called Blue Check Verified. I'm a massive fan of theirs when it comes to what they do, and it's an age verification software, and it's really good for e-commerce companies because it actually doesn't stop you. Obviously, you have to be 21 to get to the website, but it doesn't stop you on the website from converting because it's
Mm.
picking up on your IP address and it's matching that with your social and your insurance information. So it's already finding out that you're not 21. And if you try to go to the website and you're not 21, it doesn't even let you get there.
Wow.
But if you are 21, it does let you get there and it does allow and convert. So there are a lot of people out there that kind of, throw that shade on D2C e-commerce. And I do understand in some of the ways that it works why that shade is thrown on that industry. But if you're really with the correct providers and the correct, compliance or risk mitigation softwares, you're doing everything the right thing, right? And that's one of our biggest clients, Drink Willies. When we told them about this software, they embraced it completely. And if you try to go to Drink Willie's, you're not 21, you won't get in. You can't even see the website compared to some of the other age verification softwares. And it also gives them the data sets. So when I brought
Nice.
information like that to DC and showed people some of that intel, they were astonished. They're like, we had no idea something like this existed where you can't lie about your IP or your social security number. There's no fake ID in the social security world, but there is a fake ID when it comes, and this is not throwing any shade into the retail world
Hmm.
because there's no shade and some people take it very seriously, but it's a lot easier to have. And, not to criminalize myself, but I did grow up in South Florida. We are a little bit wilder at a younger age down here, but I had a fake ID and I was able to go at a, below
Wait a
21.
second. What? No way. No way. No way.
And we've
First
even
time,
talked to we've even
first time,
it's so funny.
first time I ever used my fake ID in Philadelphia. Sorry to cut you off, but I've never told this story, so I want to tell it because
Go for it.
nobody's ever brought up fake IDs. I had one in Philadelphia, and this is 21 years ago, 22 years ago. I go to buy, I go to buy the beer. I use my regular debit card. And it's a different name on the thing. I had the card. It might have still been hot from the printer, and I
Yep.
get to the retail, and I'm like flying down the highway, and the lady grabs the card and she grabs the license and she looks at me, and I just pouring sweat, like just pouring sweat. But for whatever reason, and I'm not going to name the business, even though I do still support them every once in a while when I'm in Philadelphia, she gave it all back to me and just smiled at me and just pointed at the door for me to leave. So I was then able to use it later in the bar. So,
Hey, listen, we've all been there, and it's just, it's reality. I'm very transparent, as I said earlier in this call, and it's with all my storytelling and with everything that I say. But I was able to buy some of those products, at that age, and the argument is made that the three-tier system or retail, it does protect it at a very high level, and it does bring a lot of compliance and a lot of awesome things. But I would be very sad to see D2C go away just because I've seen so many brands that couldn't compete in retail because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the relationships, and they were able to get into retail and really big distributors because they were able to grow and scale online. But again, if that is to be allowed, it needs to be met with things like the age verification that I just stated and other aspects to ensure that this never gets into the hands of any minors or anybody that shouldn't be touching, these products. And when that's showed to politicians that I know, they're very impressed. It takes a little bit more to explain it to them because they're not in the business world. They're in a completely different business lane that I would never want to be in, and I don't understand as well as they do. But it's good when you do show them that because it kind of wakes them up to being like, oh wow, there is a way, to kind of make D2C, safe and compliant, especially with bills like Rand Paul's, kind of allowing states to opt in for the interstate commerce. These little things are things we're hopeful, that really survive. And again, if they don't, then it's just diversifying and servicing in the areas where people are still selling these products and ensuring compliance and that they're with the correct, banking partners that, want to support them long term. But I don't think anybody knows, is my opinion, at least that I talk to. My opinion is let's wait till September, then see.
No, that's perfect. And yeah, this episode has been used by multiple brands, and clips have been requested of me, and quotes as well. So now the lawmakers are watching these stories and understanding the human side of things. And I think that's another interesting part, which I take as a positive. So anybody listening, if a lawmaker's now moved past the data points and is moving to the real stories of real Americans and real entrepreneurs, that means we're making positive movement. And so when I started getting those requests, I felt like I just want to publicly say it so people start understanding. I felt very good in that sense that we were moving in the right path. So I will start closing this part out. I want to say, Henry, thank you. And real quick before this, because this is his first week on the job and he's already on a podcast. So Michael, hop on your camera real quick and just give a little wave to everybody. Called him to sleep. He's already sleeping. There we go.
You're muted.
I'm definitely still here, and I was biting my tongue to tell you my own fake ID story. So maybe we'll have to save that for another time.
Actually, let's go. We'll give it that one, and then I'll close out the episode. There you go.
Well, to your point about the debit card and ID that didn't match up, I thought I was very smart in high school, and I had a fake ID, and it was a California driver's license. And the name I chose for that fake ID was Calvin Barotis, which is Snoop Dogg's legal name. And so
that's why I started laughing.
I believe I was from Long Beach, California on that ID as well. And needless to say, it didn't match any of my other documentation.
I feel much better now. I appreciate that, Mike.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous of the freaking creativity, man. I just went with the same plain Henry Lee Mashburn, man.
I
remember. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I believe I still have this artifact, and I'm in my early 50s on that document now, so it's pretty funny.
Nice, that's perfect. Well, I know those days of running down New York City and grabbing somebody to make you a fake ID on the sidewalk are gone, but we can look at those fondly as well in the past. But thank you both for what you're doing, Michael. Congratulations on the new job. I'm looking forward to seeing you grow in this space, and I'm really excited. Also, a big testament to the fact that you're on this right now, and I mean that in the best way possible. It shows the type of business that you're running, Henry. It shows that you are transparent. It shows you have nothing to hide, and you're willing to put your employees and your new hires on this with you because you already know you hired the right person, so you can trust them to be on here. So I'm observant of that, and anybody that isn't observant of that, I want to reiterate verbally to everybody. So, Henry, thank you so absolutely, man. Well, thank you so much, Henry, and I want to also say for you, the courage and the cojones, as I do say every time, whether it's male or female, is truly coming on a podcast without scripts, without an agenda, with zero prep, takes courage and cojones. So thank you for doing that, and it shows you know your shit. You live it, and you walk it, and you do it. And I appreciate it.
I'll share to add to the authenticity of this conversation. I thought this was honestly the preparation for the podcast, if I can be fully transparent. So to add to what you just said, this is as authentic as it can get, but that's the things I enjoy, man. And Nate, and I love the style of your podcast. I've seen your name on LinkedIn. I've seen some interviews before. I really appreciate, what you do for the industry, and not a lot of people like you take the time to talk to us on the ancillary side or talk to other brands and kind of dive into other niches and really see what's going on and how it could be helpful to this industry. So to anybody that's listening to this, to anybody in your network, if there's any time you guys want to reach out to us directly, we always like to have conversations first, ensure that, we're a good personal fit for you guys. You guys feel good about what we do. And, we're more than happy to answer any questions in the payments world, in the banking world, or any company that's really looking to scale online and then get into, retail doors across the country.
Perfect. Well, you are the third time that's happened. So I say it's we every single time. So I take the compliment 3 times in a row now because everybody just flowed with it. So I never knew until the end when they all told me. So I appreciate it, man. And I'm going to close out and remind everybody real quick where everybody can find you. Just reiterate name of the business, socials, website, all that stuff. Yep.
Yeah. So it's Alternative Horizons Group. The web URL is ahgpay.com. You can find me under Henry Mashburn on LinkedIn. Usually, now I'm a little bit more, with our success, a little bit more protective of my email or phone number to kind of keep things organized in my world. But if you have any questions or concerns, come to our website, enter contact information, or hit me up on LinkedIn, and we're more than happy to have a conversation and see how we can help.
Perfect, guys. Well, everybody, we talked about adult beverages in this aspect. We talked about payment processing. We talked about risk mitigation. We talked about everything going on in the hemp industry and all those. But the other underlying thing that we want to drive home with this episode is human connection. I do not know Henry. I do not know Michael. I've never shook hands with them. I've never shared a drink with them. I've never met them for coffee. We literally just met. And I want everybody to understand, in this crazy, beautifully destructive world, you can connect with strangers. You are not alone. You got to make a little bit of effort. When you're walking down the street, put your phone in your pocket, put your eyes forward, smile at a stranger. When you're at the gas station filling up that cup of coffee, say how you doing to the person next to you filling up their cup. Shut your mouth and actually care about what they say. Because even though your life might be full in the moment, you might have a partner to go home to. You might have kids to hug. You don't know what's going on in somebody's life. And right now it takes a couple seconds to just be nice. And that really can make a difference in their day, their week, their month, and God forbid, in their entire year. But that's where we are with it in this world. And I really hope that people can take that, not only that we talk about awesome beverages and we talk about what we love in business, but I want more people to start connecting and seeing in real time what it is to meet a stranger. So thank you both for the courage in coming on today. And I'm looking forward to talking with you guys a lot more. So,
Awesome.
hey, thanks, guys.
Awesome,
Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks, man.